Hi, I'm Ivan from WebWash, and in this video, I will show you how to set up a Drupal site using SiteGround. Now, if you are looking for a decent hosting provider for your Drupal site, but you don't want to spend hundreds of dollars per month, I highly recommend that you check out SiteGround. Every plan comes with free email, SSL, a basic CDN, and also automated backups. And the UI is pretty intuitive. It doesn't look like the standard cPanel stuff. Now, if you want to learn more about SiteGround, just head over to siteground.com. And if you hover over hosting up the top here, you can see all of their hosting products. Obviously, they have WordPress hosting because WordPress is very popular. But if you click on web hosting, you can see the shared hosting plans right here. And it starts at $5. Now, be aware, this is in Australian dollars. So $5 per month may be cheap or expensive, depending where you are watching this video from. So the first plan, which is Startup, allows you to host one website for $5 per month. And then the middle plan, which is Grow Big, is a bit more expensive, and it allows you to host unlimited websites with 20 gig of web space. And then the Go Geek, which is the big plan, allows you to host unlimited websites with 40 gig. Now, make sure you scroll down because each plan does have extra things. So the middle plan has on-demand backups and also 30% faster PHP. Now, one thing to be aware of is that this staging only works for WordPress sites. Unfortunately, it doesn't work for just a PHP application, which is a bit of a bummer. And then on the Go Geek, I believe, plan, you have staging and Git, which I'll show you how to use later on in this video. And you also get more resources as well. So another thing to be aware of with the pricing is that you will see that it is at this point, 75% off. Now, just a warning, the first year is pretty cheap, but then be aware when you renew, it'll renew at the expensive monthly rate. So just be aware of that. Now, in this video, I'll show you how to set up a Drupal site using the Go Geek plan, which I've already purchased. And I'll show you how to set up a Drupal site manually through SSH. And then I'll show you how to set it up using SiteGround and their app manager. So to get started, just click on Get Plan, then enter in a domain for your hosting. You can register a domain directly from here, or if you have an existing one, just click on I already have a domain and then enter in a domain name. So I'll just enter in webwash.net, then click on Proceed. Enter in the account information and client information, as well as your credit card details. And then if you scroll down to the hosting services, here in the plans section, you can switch the plans, so you won't have to go back and select another one. Then under Data Center, you can select where your server will be hosted. By default, it'll select Australia for me because I am based in Australia. But if I click on this icon right here, I can switch to a different data center. So normally with my websites, the US is where most of my traffic comes from. So it makes perfect sense to host my websites in the US. So if I was purchasing this server to host WebWash, for example, I would select the US for sure. And then below that, you can select either 1 month, 12 month, or 24 month. But the 12 month is the best deal. But just remember that after the 12 months, you will be charged a higher rate. So once everything has been filled out and you are ready to purchase the hosting, scroll down, check all the checkboxes, and then click on Pay Now. Now, I should mention that if you click on a SiteGround link from WebWash and purchase a plan, I will receive an affiliate commission. And I use affiliate links to fund content for WebWash. So let's go ahead and set up a Drupal site. So what I'll do is I'll close this tab because I no longer need it. And here I am already logged in. And let me unpin this because I will be using this tab a lot. And from websites, you will be able to see all of your created websites. Now, I have gone ahead and deleted the test websites just for this video. That's why it says you have no websites yet. But to create a site, simply click on Create Website. And from this page, you can create a website in 3 ways: with a new domain, with an existing domain, or you can use a temporary domain. So if you want to create a website with a brand new domain name, but you haven't purchased the domain, then click on New Domain. If you already have an existing domain, then click on Existing Domain. But in this example, I will choose Temporary Domain. So just click on that. And what it does is that it will generate this domain using sg-host.com. But you can change the domain name to your own later on. So I'll select Temporary Domain and click on Continue. And then if I click on Start New Website, you can install WordPress, WooCommerce, but in our case, we need to click on Skip and Create Empty Site. So go ahead and do that, and then click on Finish. Now, this is going to go ahead and spin up a site for us, and it will take around 1 to 2 minutes. Once the website has been spun up, we can go to our website. So if we click on Go to Site, it's going to show us this nice little landing page. And then if we go back here and click on Site Tools, this will take us to the back end of the site where we can manage a whole bunch of stuff. So click on Site Tools. And from the dashboard, you can see site information such as how much space is taken, also how much processing power it has used. And then you have site IP and also name servers. And then if you scroll down, you can see statistics for your website. And then from the left-hand side, if you click on Site, you get a site manager, which allows you to manage files on the server directly. Then you can go ahead and create FTP accounts. You can also set up MySQL databases and user accounts. You can also set up Postgres as well. Then under security, you can set up your backups. Then you can manage your SSL certificates. You can also enforce HTTPS. You can also control protected URLs, block traffic, and also set up a site scan, but I do believe you have to pay for this. Then under speed, we have caching. You can see by default, Nginx is turned on. So this will cache static assets such as images, CSS, and JavaScript. We also have dynamic cache as well. And then you have Memcache, which we will set up on our Drupal site. Of course, WordPress, you can kind of ignore for this video. Then under domain, you can add in parked domains, subdomains as well can be set up. You can also set up redirects. Then under email, you can manage emails, but we won't be covering that in this video. Then under statistics, you can see the site traffic from here. And also you can get access to the error logs and also access logs. And finally, under devs, you can control the Git repository. You can also set up cron jobs. You can change PHP versions, set up SSH keys, and also install applications. Now, we will be spending a fair bit of time under devs. So that is a quick overview of the backend for managing a website on SiteGround. So the first thing we'll need to do to set up our Drupal site is set up SSH access, because we'll have to SSH into the server and run Composer. Now, luckily for us, SiteGround sets up Composer and PHP on the command line, so we don't have to worry about that. But what we have to do is set up our SSH access. Now, to do that, scroll down and click on SSH Keys Manager. And from Generate, you can generate your own SSH keys. And from Import, you can import your own public keys. So what I'll do now is I will grab my public key. So I do know that is in id rsa.pub. And I'll copy this across and paste it in. And I'll give this name MacBook. Then click on Import. So now that I have imported in my key, I should be able to SSH into the server. So let's go back to our terminal and let me just clear this. And what I need to do is type in SSH. Let's go back here, and under SSH credentials, the port will be this port. So let me copy that across. So that'll be -P, and the username will be this long username and then the host is this. So you want to copy this somewhere, and then I'll type in yes. And now I am on the server. It is that simple to SSH into the server if you have, of course, imported in your SSH keys. If we go into www, and then you will see the actual host name for our website. And then within here, we have a public HTML. Now, public HTML is the doc root. So if we go in there, we should see our default.html, which is that landing page I showed you earlier on. Let's jump back into SiteGround. And what we need to do is change the PHP version, because if we go into our terminal and type in php-v, you will see that by default, it is using 7.4, which is an older version of PHP. And I want to use 8.0. So the first thing we need to do is go here and click on PHP Manager. Now, this will only change it for the web server. We need to do something else for the command line, which I will show you in a second. But let's go ahead and first change it for the server. Make sure you are on PHP Manager, then scroll down and click on this pencil icon. And then from Set PHP Version, select Change PHP Version Manually, and then select 8.0, and then click on Confirm. But if we go back into our terminal and type in php-v, you will see it is still 7.4. But what SiteGround give us is that they give us access to a lot of different PHP versions directly from user/local/bin. So if we go, well, first of all, if we type in where is PHP, you will see this user/local/bin/PHP. So if we go there, let me just copy paste that to save a bit of time. And then I go and type in ls, you will see all of these versions of PHP 5.6. Well, we don't want that one, of course. But here we have PHP 8.0, 8.1, 8.2. And then up the top here, we have Drush, but this version of Drush is an older version of Drush. And then we have Composer up the top here. Well, here it is. I would like to pause here just to give a quick update. When I recorded this video, I used PHP 8.0 because Drupal 10 wasn't released. But Drupal 10 requires 8.1. So everywhere I use PHP 8.0, I do recommend that you use PHP 8.1, or if you are watching this video a year from now or whenever it's published, I would recommend you use PHP 8.2, which is PHP 8.2. Anyway, back to the video. So all we need to do is run this command instead of just PHP. So let's go back to our home directory. So that is that. So let me just clear this. And if I type in PHP 8.0, we will get PHP 8.0 on the command line. And to run Composer, I can't just run Composer because I do believe it'll use PHP 7.4 if we just run Composer. So let me just clear this. What we need to do is run PHP 8.0 user local bin composer.phar. I don't think you can it's hard to see, but essentially that's it. So now if we run this, we will get Composer. Perfect. So let's go ahead and download Drupal into this directory, not in public HTML, because remember, public HTML is the doc root. The web server can access public HTML. So what I'll do is I'll copy over this command, which I prepared earlier, and which you can get from the accompanying blog post, which is just PHP 8.0 pointing to Composer, and then it is using Drupal/recommended project, and it's adding all of that into a folder just called Drupal. So give that a second or two to download. Then if we have a look here, we can see Drupal, and then we still have our public HTML. And then if we go into Drupal, we do have our web directory, which is our doc root. Now, when I was preparing for this video, I looked at ways of easily changing this web to something else, and I was able to do it, but then Composer, for some reason, was adding in Drupal core still in the web directory, but then adding everything else into a public HTML. So one thing I realized is that it wasn't that easy to change this folder from web to something else. Maybe somebody has a little quick tip that they can share with me, but I spent a fair bit of time just trying to figure it out, and I wasn't able to do it. But I've come up with another solution, and the other solution is to use a symlink. So what we'll do now is let's go back a directory, and let's go ahead and simply remove this public HTML because we don't need it. And then what we need to do is create a symlink. So we need to create a link which will link to Drupal/web, and then the destination will be public HTML. And then if we ls now, we can see that public HTML is pointing to Drupal/web. And while we are here, let's jump back into Drupal and let's download Drush. So I'll just type in PHP Composer require Drush/Drush, and this will download the latest Drush, which is 11.2. And I do believe the version of Drush on the server is like version 8, which is an older version. Okay, at this point, we have downloaded Drupal core. Let's go ahead and install it. Now, the first thing we need to do is set up the MySQL database. So let's go back into SiteGround, scroll up, and click on MySQL. Then simply click on Create Database. And SiteGround automatically creates databases with random names. So what you can do is you can change the label. So I will change it to Drupal so it's easier to recognize it. And then we need to go ahead and create a user. So click on Create User, then Create User again, then click on Manage Access, and let's leave everything as it is. And here you can see where the label is actually used. So if you do have multiple databases, the label is very useful to differentiate between all the random names. And you can also see that the username, again, is a random name. So everything looks good here. We have given this user access to the database. And then if we click on the options, let's change the password. So what I'll do is I will generate it and I will copy this. So I've got it somewhere. And then I'll click on confirm. Let me copy the username because I'll need it, and also the database. And if you want to manage the database, you can click on PHP My Admin, and that will take you to good old PHP My Admin, where you can go ahead and query the database, truncate tables, delete tables, and so on and so forth. Okay, let's go back here. And I believe at this point we are ready to install Drupal. So let's go to our website. And one thing I did notice is that from this page, there is no link to the actual website. So you would think they would put in a little link here, which you can click on and it will just open up a new tab and off you go. But no, there isn't. So you have to just copy it. But luckily here, I'll just notice that I've got this tab opened up. Okay, now all we need to do is refresh the page and we should see the Drupal installation page. Let's hope it works. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Okay. So click on Save and Continue. Now, I've done this many times in my videos, so let's just quickly smash through this. Add in the database name, the database username, and let's add in the database username password. Then click on Save and Continue. Perfect. It connected to the database and it's going ahead and installing everything. All right, let's add in a site name, which is SiteGround. Add in my generic username and password. Let's turn everything off so we don't get notifications and click on Save and Continue. And now we have a freshly installed Drupal site. Let's close that off. And at this point, it is a working Drupal site. Everything works pretty well. The site is actually pretty responsive. Mind you, this is a simple website. I don't know how fast this site would be with, 50 odd modules and 10 different content types. But for a basic website, it is actually pretty responsive. Okay, let's go ahead now and set up the private folder. Because if we go to configuration, and where is it? file system, you can see that the private file system hasn't been set up. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, we can modify the settings.php in two ways. First, we can do it from File Manager. So if we come here, well, let's just refresh this. We should see. Sometimes you need to refresh the page fully to see all the changes. There we go. So now we see Drupal and we see this link icon, which means it's a symlink. So if we click on Drupal, we'll double click, Web, Sites, Default, we can now go ahead here and change things. So the first thing I'll do is add in the private folder. What we need to do before we change the settings.php is actually create a private folder. So let's clear this. And what we'll do is we'll add the private folder in the Drupal directory, because remember, the web directory is the doc root. So the web server exposes that folder to the world. But if we go back a directory, the items in here aren't exposed. So let me go ahead and create a folder called private. And let's jump back into here. And because we are modifying the settings.php, we first need to change the permissions on the folder. And if you right click on it, you will see you can change permissions. So by default, Drupal sets it to 444, which means it is read only. So we can change it from here, but I have found a few bugs changing the permissions back to 444 from here. So let's just first change it to 744 so we can modify it. And now if we scroll down to private file system, it's somewhere here. Let me just search for it. Here we go. And let's uncheck this. Well, what I need to do is copy over my example. So let's copy this across. And now you can see, oh, we've saved it, but that hasn't worked. Because yes, sometimes I think you need to refresh it a few times if you change the permission. Or the other option is to just do it through the command line, but I just want to show you how to do it through here. Sometimes using Vim is the nice quick option. So see, it's still set to 444. Let's change this. There we go, that's changed. Let's go back to private, paste this in, save it, and there we go. It has saved, perfect. Now, if we want to change the permission back to say, read only, I just want to pause this video for 1 second and show you a problem which I discovered during the editing process. Now, when I was changing the permission, well, attempting to change the permission for the settings.php, I would come down here, select default, then right-click on settings.php from the left-hand column and click on change permissions. And then I would change the permissions here and I would get an error. Now, I didn't notice that default was still selected. And you can see here, change permissions of default. And what I realized was that if you simply right-click on a file, you can see here that default is still selected. So what you need to do is click on settings.php, then go change permissions, and then you can change settings.php. So I do apologize for that. I didn't pick that up during the recording. If you want to change the permission for a file, make sure you select it first by left clicking and then right clicking. You can't just go and right click on an unselected file because it still thinks settings.php is selected. So just a heads up. Now back to the video. It says this for some reason. I don't know why it says it. You can't change it. Anyway, what we can do is let's go back into here, go into web, settings, default. And if we go ls, let's just change it to chmod 444 settings. There we go. And now if we have a look here, so take note of this. This is 744. And if we go ls, now it's exactly 444. So it's read only. All right, perfect. Then if we refresh, this should be back to read only, but Drupal automatically changes it back to read only if you start using the website. Look in here, you can see, yep, read only. Perfect. So if we go back in here and if we refresh, okay, Normally I need to flush the cache, but I don't have to now. And now you can see that the private file system has been set up. Now, the next thing I want to show you is how to export the config onto the file system. Now, to do that, we will have to change the config sync directory configuration. So again, let's go back into the settings.php. Let's change this back to 744. Let's double click on it. If you scroll down to the bottom, you should see this config sync directory. Now, by default, it points to a folder in the files directory, but let's change it so that it is in a folder outside of the document root, similar to the private file system. So I'll go ahead and paste in this bit of code, which means it'll find the app root, then it'll go back a directory and look for a config export folder. Let's go ahead and save that. And hopefully this will save. Perfect. Then if we go back into our terminal, let me clear this. Let's first of all change settings.php permission back to read only. And let's make sure that is set to read only, which it is. Perfect. And let's go back a bit. And from here, we need to create a config export. And now we should be able to run drush config export, and everything should be exported into this config export folder. So let me go ahead and type in php 80, and then to run drush, we need to run it from vendor bin drush and see everything is working. Perfect. Then if we run cex, it should go ahead and export everything. Okay, I see a success, which is great. Then if we go into config export, we should see a whole bunch of YAML files. There you go. So this is all the configuration for our site. And to test that everything is working, let's go back into SiteGround and let's refresh. Well, we're going to have to refresh the whole page. And let's change some config and import it in and make sure it is working. So normally what I like to do is I like to find, what is it? Site name. There we go. System site. That's what I want. Well, let's edit that. And let's change it from SiteGround to SiteGround updated. All right, that has updated. And now if we go back in here, well, no, let's go back, sorry. Let's find our drush command. And this time type in CIM. And it is down here in the bottom left. And if we run that, it'll tell us one bit of config has been changed, which is correct. And if we type in yes, it'll go ahead and import it in. And now if we go to our website, it should have SiteGround updated. There we go, right here. And now if we remove it, so let's go ahead and remove it. And if we run config export, it should tell us that it is modifying the system site, which is correct. And now it's back to just SiteGround as the site name. Okay, config import and export is working. Let's go ahead now and set up Memcache, because this will really speed up the responsiveness of a Drupal site. Now, the first thing we need to do is jump over to our terminal and download the Memcache module. So let's go ahead and do that. So just run composer require Drupal /Memcache. And what we need to do is then go to extend and then type in Memcache and install the module. Now we need to add in a bit of code into settings.php. I'll open up a new tab, and if you go to this documentation page on SiteGround, and this documentation page explains to you how to set up Memcache. And if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you will see this settings right here. So all we need to do is copy this over into our settings.php file. Let's go back to the file manager and let me refresh the page, and then go into Drupal, web, sites, default. Let's change this to 744. Let's edit the settings, scroll all the way down to the bottom, and then paste it in. And then if we save, it hopefully should save. Perfect. And then we need to go back into default settings. Is this it? Yeah, perfect. And change this back to 444. All right. Now, if we go to our website, we will get a fatal error because we haven't turned on Memcache. So let's go into our dashboard and then, where is it? Speed, caching, and then this is Memcached. Go ahead and switch it on. And then if you want to flush it, just click on this little flush icon here if you want to flush it. Then if we refresh, it should work. Perfect. Now, if we search for Memcache again, you will see this Memcache admin. If you install it, this actually displays a bit of Memcache status down at the bottom, I believe. Do a hard refresh. Why is that not working? Let's go into here, do a cache rebuild. Oh, I know why, because I need to go into here and display it. Okay, so you install it and then you have to enable it. There you go. And now you can see the actual hits. So if we refresh, you'll see that the hits are 100%. If we click on a brand new page, let's click on reports, for example, and scroll down. Oh, that's all 100%, which is good. We go to a page on the front end, scroll down. Okay, here you can see 38% has been missed, but if we refresh, there you go, you can see that only one query has been missed. So now we can see that Memcache is working. Let's go ahead and turn it off now that we know it is working. And you also want to make sure that unnecessary modules are also uninstalled. So let's go ahead and uninstall Memcache admin. So at this point, we have installed Drupal, set up private file system, configured the config export, and also set up Memcache. The last thing we'll do is set up the DNS because we are still accessing the site from this temporary domain. Let's go back to the dashboard. And what we need to do is go all the way to the front, then click on websites, and we should see our website here. And then click on the option here on the right, then click on change primary domain. And our new domain will be a subdomain. So let me just put that in and click on confirm. Now, one thing to be aware of is that SiteGround wants to control your DNS, and they will always recommend that you point your domain to their name servers. But I personally like to keep my DNS and hosting separate. So I use Hover to manage my DNS. So I won't be following this recommendation. Instead, I will simply set up an A record in Hover and point it to the server. So you can go back to websites and then click on Site Tools, and you should see a big message telling you to change the DNS. But again, we can permanently hide it. And what we need is the IP to our site. And let me go into Hover, and all I need to do is click on Add a Record, add in the IP and the subdomain, which is Drupal-sg-build. And then click on Add Record. And then give that about 10 minutes. Normally it propagates straight away, but just give it about 10 minutes. And then if we go to our website, and let's go into SSL Manager, and from Select SSL, you can select Let's Encrypt Wildcard, or a premium wildcard. Just select Let's Encrypt. It's free and it works. So just click on Get and just give that a second or two. It's actually pretty quick. And then click on HTTPS Enforce, and let's enforce HTTPS. So this will always redirect HTTP to HTTPS, and that's it. And then if we refresh, we should see our working site. Now, if we log in, let me just quickly log in. Everything is working. I can go ahead and submit a form. Let me just test that out. and submit it. And there you go. Our website has a custom, subdomain and it's working off HTTPS. Now, it is important to always set up SSL. It is very easy on most hosting providers now, thanks to Let's Encrypt. And also make sure you ensure that HTTPS is used. And we haven't had to configure anything within Drupal. HTTPS works straight out of the box, as long as a hosting provider supports it. Now, the next thing I want to show you is how to set up Drupal using the app installer, because we set up Drupal on this site manually by SSHing into the server, running Composer ourselves. But you can, from the devs section, if you click on devs and then app installer, you can install Drupal through here. And once you install it through this app installer, you can then control Drupal using Git, and you can also deploy it using Git. So if you were to make a change to this Git repository, it'll automatically be deployed. Now, because we set up Drupal manually, we can't use this Git functionality. So let's set up a brand new site, and I'll show you how to install Drupal using this app installer, and then we'll set up Git. So let's go back to our websites page, and let me close these tabs because we won't need them. So let's go to websites, click on new website, and let's create another temporary domain and click on then continue. And let's skip it and click on finish and give this about 1 to 2 minutes. Click on Site Tools, then click on Devs, then App Installer. Then from the application dropdown, select Drupal and leave everything as it is. Let's add in a username, test admin, and I'll add in my usual ivan@example.com. Then click on install. Now this will go ahead and download Drupal and install it straight away for us. And then if we go to our website, let's go to it. We should have a working website out of the box. Perfect. If I log in, what was the username? Was it admin test? Or was it test admin? Oh, I forgot. I think it was test_admin. Password. There we go. And if we go into configuration, it will complain that the website is out of date because it is an older version of Drupal by 2 versions. I believe, yeah, just 2 versions. And this is a security update, so you want to make sure this is updated. Let's go back to the dashboard and let's have a look and see how it actually installed it. So if we go into Site and File Manager, you will see that everything is in public HTML. And straight away, you can see here that we have Drupal core and then the modules, profiles, themes, and we have Composer. I think Composer is directly in here. So previously, we were using the Drupal recommended, which downloads the vendor directory in a separate directory, and then everything else is in the /web directory. Whereas in this case, the vendor directory, core, and also the modules and profiles and themes and all that is in the one directory. And then if we take a look in here, you can see it's still using the recommend, or no, it's using the core recommended. So this technically works, but it just works a little different. Here you can see that Drush 11 is already installed. Now to install modules, you can do it through the extend, I believe. Yep, add modules, you can come here and manually upload them in. But if the module has a dependency on a third-party PHP library, well, then you will need to use Composer for that. So just be aware that no matter what, you will still have to jump onto the server and somehow run Composer install when you deploy. So that can be automated, or somebody can just SSH into the server and run it themselves. Now let's set up Git. Okay, so let's go back into the dashboard, go into Git, and now we can actually see something in this dropdown. But if we go back to our other site, and you can quickly do that just by clicking on change and then selecting another website, you will see that nothing can be selected here. And that is because we installed Drupal manually. So let's go back to our other website and then simply click on create. And this will create a Git repository using the files in the public HTML. If we click on Git info, so here is the git clone command, which you can use to clone the site locally, but you want to make sure that you have imported in your SSH key. Now, I have already done that, just so I don't show you how to do that again. So let me go ahead and copy the command, and let's jump into our terminal and paste in the git clone command, and then hit enter. And then if you ls, you should see public HTML. If we go into it, this is our Git repository. Let me open it up in VS Code so it's much easier to see. Now, one thing to be aware of is that SiteGround adds everything into the repository, the vendor directory, the settings.php, and even the files directory, which you would normally ignore from the Git repository. So if you click on example.git ignore, you'll see all the recommendations on what should be ignored, such as the vendor directory, all of the settings and services, as well as the files directory, and also the simple test. And we already have a git ignore, which SiteGround puts in. So what we'll do is let's go ahead and copy this and then paste it in here. And I'll also add in /core because we do not want to store the Drupal core directory. Let me go and save that. And now comes the tricky part of removing all of the ignored folders and files from the Git repository. But luckily for me, I was able to find something using Google and Stack Overflow, because I'm sure I'm not the only person who has experienced this issue. So let me go ahead and show you this Stack Overflow question. Well, the question and the answer. Now, some of these worked previously. This one worked earlier today when I was testing out this video, but for some reason it doesn't work now. Not sure why, and I can't be bothered debugging it right now. But then I saw this other way of doing it. Essentially what you're doing is removing all of the files from the repository and then just adding in the ones which haven't been ignored. But make sure you test all of this stuff out locally. Do not do it on a production site. So what I'll do is I'll copy this across. Another thing I'll mention is that I don't know how the history will be saved if we do all of this. So just do your research is what I'm trying to say. So let me go ahead and, well, let's clear this. Let's first of all remove everything. Okay, you can see here a lot of stuff has been removed. Great. Then let's add it back in and let's then commit it. And that's it. And now everything has been removed. All right. So far, so good. Now, when we push this up into the server, so when we type in git push origin master, it will delete the vendor directory, the core directory on the site. So the site will temporarily break until we run composer install. So that's just one thing to be aware of. And another thing to be aware of is that we have deleted files from the files directory. So if you have set up a Drupal site on SiteGround a couple of months ago and people have been using it and uploading files, and then you want to switch on Git support and you followed the steps here, you will be losing files from your files directory. So again, just do your research and test things out locally and make sure you don't lose critical files. And the other thing that I'll also mention is that when we run git push origin master, there will be an error saying that it can't unlink settings.php, which kind of works in our favor because that means settings.php won't be deleted and we don't have to recreate it. So if I just hit enter now, so git push origin master, it's going to go ahead and it's going to complain that it cannot delete the settings.php, which is fine. And now if we go to our website, we will get a fatal error. Yep, that's fine. What we need to do is SSH into our site. So let me exit out of here and I need to get the SSH credentials. Where are they? Here. All right, let's do this from scratch again. Fun, fun, fun. So let me remove all of this. Then the host. And let's SSH in. All right, we're in. Great. Let's go www. And then we're going to public. And then if we take a look in here, all right, we can see vendor is there, but I don't think any of, like the folders are there, but I don't think anything's in them. Dig down even further. Yeah, it's just the README files, which are often automatically ignored by git ignore. So what we need to do is, can I run composer? No, I can't. All right, let me grab a quick command. Where is it? Composer install. All right, cool. Oh no, this is actually running PHP 7.4. So all we need to do is run in composer install. It's going to go ahead and download everything, and then download Drush. Perfect. And it's cleaning things up. Now, if we go back to our site, it should work. There we go. Okay. So now let's go ahead and change something here. So what I'll do is I'll change something in here. Test. So I've made a change in the install.text. So git commit. Oh, what is am? Changed install.text. And let me just, well, this is an actual quick key for me, but I'll type in the proper one. Git push origin master. It's gone ahead and made the change. Now, I'm not sure how long it takes to change. I don't know, a few seconds probably. Then if we come along in here, what was it? It was in uppercase install. There we go. It has modified. So that is how you install Drupal using the app installer and Git. Now, so far in this video, I've shown you two ways how to install Drupal. We first looked at installing it manually by SSHing to the server and running Composer ourselves, and then you learned how to use the app installer. So that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to learn more about Drupal and other CMSs, head over to webwash.net. Don't forget to give this video a like, and if you have a question, please leave a comment. Anyway, that is it from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.